I'm Amy, sex educator, somatic sex and relationship coach, and sex shop owner.
And I'm April, VP of an international high-end pleasure products company and boss queen sex toy mogul. We're best friends who make our own rules about who we are as sexual beings.
With everything from how to be a badass in the bedroom to top tips for bringing your relationship to the next level, we have something just for you.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Don't forget to head on over to our website at shamelesssex.com for more. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com. Hello, everyone. Amy here from the Shameless Sex Podcast. April is not here today, but I miss her. I miss you, Chip. I love you so much. Let's see. Some announcements. Well, let me tell you what we're talking about today. We're talking about breath orgasm. Who doesn't want to learn about that? So stay tuned because I'm going to introduce our speaker. You know it's not just going to be with me. I have some experience with breath orgasm, but not nearly as much as our guest. But before we dive in, some announcements. Okay, number one is Valentine's Day is coming up. Yay! If you want to buy your lover some gifts for Valentine's Day, I have a couple options for you. Number one, purepleasureshop.com. You get 15% off. Woohoo! This is my shameless promotion. And with 15% off using coupon code SHAMELESSSEXPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com. Number two, this podcast is not sponsored by Amazon, but we do get hooked up by Amazon if you use a link from our website to buy anything, meaning anything you want from Amazon. If you go to our website, you click on this little Amazon-y picture and you click and you buy through that link, we actually get some of that money. It goes towards our wine fund or whatever else we're doing. It keeps, things trucking around here. They're not sponsoring us, though. We have to be clear about that. So if you want to help us out, go ahead and go to our website at shamelesssex.com. We have our podcast and some funny pictures of us, too, and the Amazon link is on the front. I think that's it for my promotions, and I'm just going to dive right in because I'm super excited about this topic. So my speaker here is Maurizio. Did I say that right? Maurizio? Mm-hmm. Maurizio Alvarez. Maurizio Alvarez. I met at a festival in June. I was teaching a workshop there. You were not teaching one, but you were teaching one at the following festival that I did not go to. Mm-hmm. And you told me that you teach breath orgasm. And I was like, what? Tell me more about this. So Maurizio Alvarez, he is a SFSI certified sex educator. You just did that training, correct?
Yeah.
And SFSI is it stands for San Francisco Sex Information. It's in San Francisco. You can look them up at sfsI.org. It is a nonprofit sex educator training group, but they also have a switchboard, which is actually what they first started doing. They have a switchboard, and do they still do the switchboard? Like you can call in and not
do.
So you can ask them anonymous sex questions. You can email them anonymous sex questions, and they also train sex educators. And I actually did that training in 2008. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. So welcome, Mauricio. Really happy to have you here.
Yeah. I'm really happy to be a part of the Shameless Sex Podcast.
Yay! So fun. Okay. Tell us about yourself, like about your journey in the world of sexuality, and whatever you want to share.
Yeah. My journey in the world of sexuality definitely starts very young. As I've gone through my process of kind of going through the layers of my sexual discovery, I learned that I was actually really I was sexual from a very, very young age, like kindergarten. Mm-hmm. I discovered masturbation, I think, in like first grade.
How did you discover it? What were you doing?
Well, it was on the playground, and somehow I discovered I was sliding down this pole, and I was like, oh, hey, like this actually feels pretty good.
I'm going to slide down again.
So I climbed back up, and that part felt good too, and I slid back down, and it ended up feeling really good. And so I figured out there was this way that if I went up and down and up and down and up and down, then there would be this kind of like, whoa, this rush.
And then a 6-year-old just had an orgasm.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, so like at that age, I had no idea what was going on. I was just following what felt good. And as I've gone through different experiences and workshops and teachings and healings and sexuality, I started to realize like, wow, this has been something that's been really present with me for pretty much my whole life. Finding different little sneaky ways to experience like pleasure as a kid and moving up through like my teenage years and into my adulthood. Yeah. So yeah, I personally, I like to believe that this is part of my purpose on this planet. I really believe that kind of the way that my body and my mindset and my history has been organized is really in service of me doing sexuality work for myself, to heal myself, in turn healing, bringing healing to the planet, and then working with other people as well to just bring more sexual healing.
That's
our relationship
so
with
important.
self.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So glad
definitely.
you're doing that.
Yeah.
I think finding male or male identified allies in the sex positive movement brings me so much joy. Every time I go to trainings around sexuality, whether it's tantra or whatever it is, it's very much female identified, and so it's nice to see. And I understand it's a tricky one too, especially with the Me Too movement and things like that as well. Which is why breath orgasm is great. We're not touching necessarily.
No, not
right?
at all. Completely solo practice. The basics of it are completely solo practice.
So you can do it anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere,
by
anytime.
yourself.
Don't need to be touching yourself. Don't need to take off any of your clothes. Like as long as you have functioning lungs, you should be able to do breath orgasm work.
Good. So as long as you're alive and can breathe. Perfect.
Yeah.
Are you aware of so I did Barbara Carrellis's urban tantra training, and that's where I learned more. I learned a little bit of breath orgasm, Annie Sprinkle, and a little bit from Barbara Carrellis.
Yeah.
But in her book Urban Tantra, love this book, everyone. Urban Tantra. If you want to know more about tantra, it's one of my faves because it's very gender and orientation inclusive, and she talks about even some BDSM and how that links with tantra as this, like divine oneness.
Yeah.
But she talked about how her and Annie Sprinkle developed this breath orgasm practice during the AIDS crisis as a means of practicing safer sex. Like you could get pleasure and orgasm just by breath, and you could do it, breathe with others too, but without your bodies having to touch. It's like the key to the safest of safer sex while we're still connecting and receiving pleasure even with others.
Definitely. It's actually, that book was maybe the first, like, it wasn't the first tantra book that I read, but it was the one that really impacted me the most. And that book had some exercises in it that really began my process of not just like information, but like experiential learning. And I think in that book, she actually has the kind of the breakdown and a diagram for her version of breath orgasm. And when I was first getting into that world, I was reading it and like practicing it every day. And I remember, it's in the beginning, it was kind of like, well, I don't know, like I'm going to breathe and feel something like, and then just time, practice, and like letting my mind stay open to it, I started to really like, whoa, hey, like something's really going on here. Yeah. So it's amazing you mentioned that.
Yeah.
It was like
that was one of your inspirations.
That was really what, started to open this vast door.
Yeah.
And from there is kind of a train I really couldn't stop.
Yeah. Why would you want to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, so we've kind of talked about some stuff like safer sex, and this is the fact that this is something that anyone can do anytime, anywhere, whether you're alone or with other people. But are there any other reasons why people would really want to learn about breath orgasm and incorporate that in their lives?
Yeah, my approach to breath orgasm work really has a lot to do with the de-armoring of the body and the human system, and a lot to do with de-armoring of the mind. Again, because I don't think I'm really special in the sense that when I heard and read about breath orgasm, immediately this idea pops into my brain like, no way, that's not really a thing. These limitations that show up in our mind about what's really possible for us in the kind of pleasure that we can channel through our bodies, and what's really available for us, those things pop up immediately with a practice like breath orgasm. So what I found really valuable with something like breath orgasm is it really challenges those. It really asks us to stretch, to be open to receiving pleasure in a way that maybe has never really seemed possible, but is very possible if as long as we're open to it. And what I really like about it, like what's interesting for me, the world of sexuality, it like contains a lot of kind of other components. I've done martial arts for a majority of my life. And also going through martial arts, there was these elements that I really found to be like very related to sexuality. And as I've done more things like yoga and qigong, and really like what I'm seeing is probably what a lot of people notice, like at the root of most of our like spiritual systems is like breath, movement, energy, and visualization, like some combination of those things. And what I found with breath orgasm in terms of like actually like de-armoring the body, so helping to kind of break apart these like numbings that happen in our body to pleasure. Well, with the breath and with the visualization and with pretty minimal movement, it's kind of up to the person. The same thing can start to happen. You have breath, you have movement, you have visualization, and it's actually creating an impact on the body. It's actually changing the physiology of the body and literally opening the cells to receive more pleasure. And for me, more people receiving more pleasure sounds like a really good thing.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sold. Well, and I think people underestimate the power of breath in especially when it comes to orgasm or with anything. I mean, we're constantly breathing to stay alive. Obviously, that's happening. And there's so many different components to breath. Can you describe like different? I mean, my understanding, I always talk about how we could breathe really fast and rapid, and that can increase arousal and just and body heat and move. We get blood moving, and sometimes that can move a little too fast, so then we might want to slow it down.
Yeah.
But I imagine the breath that you're teaching is a much slower circular breath. Can you tell us kind of what that looks like?
Yeah, well, the way that I like to teach it actually is very much up to the individual. I do recognize and teach the faster breathing as kind of stoking the fire, and there's the slower breathing, which is almost more like maybe more cooling or kind of like a lava pouring through the body. But like with any experience, I think within sexuality, any sexual engagement, whether with self or with another, it's always up to the moment. The moment is very individual, and if I'm doing a breath orgasm practice today, it might feel really important for me to go fast and really be stoking the fire. Maybe I'm needing energy, or I'm needing to be really invigorated. So I need this like really active, more kind of yang kind of energy. On a different day, maybe I'm going through something more heavy and I'm feeling a lot of like intense emotions, something a little softer and more the kind of the long draw circular breath might feel more appropriate and more healing for me in that moment. So the way I teach it is kind of offering both, and I show both. And usually when I'm demonstrating, kind of switch back and forth. It's it's me in my own process, and ends up having a little bit of both. But then as I have people go through the practice, I make sure to really remind people, stay tuned to what's necessary for you. You don't have to move as fast as I'm kind of guiding the class. You don't have to move as fast as anyone else. You don't have to move as slow as them either. You can go off and blast off into outer space if you're ready for that and you want that. Go for it. And there's definitely different effects, and it's really, in my mind, it's really up to the individual and in the moment about what's really useful, what's going to be the most pleasurable or the most healing.
So is that step one would be, you teach the breath, but helping people get clear on where they're at that moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, the first step is the technique, is the structure, which is pretty simple. And I think a lot of the work, in my mind, the work isn't really learning the technique. It's like, it really, again, is a very, very simple thing. The work is working with oneself, one's own self-limiting beliefs around, hey, I'm supposed to breathe and feel pleasure. Like, probably the case most people are thinking, well, I have this partner and that partner touches me and I don't even feel pleasure then sometimes. So now I'm supposed to breathe and feel pleasure. So it's really
complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Many, many layers come up. And I think that's where, next after learning the technique, the big step is, this is a process, especially when I'm doing the solo, like teaching the solo breath orgasm practice. It's a process for self-relationship. I teach it very much from that perspective. Like, this is a way to make love to yourself. It's a way to understand yourself on a deeper level. In who knows how many ways. This I've noticed that this work tends to bring things to the surface. I believe that like our sexual energy, not necessarily just like physical stimulation, not the physical arousal, but like the energy of arousal is this life force energy that, you know, gets spoken about in a lot of like sacred sexuality disciplines. And when we are activating that life force energy with consciousness and with intention, it's going to bring more life into the places that need life, and it will also probably illuminate, you know, for lack of a better word, areas that are more dead, more numb, or that are needing life.
More dull.
More dull, exactly. Places we've shut off from, you know, connections that we've severed, you know, with ourself, really.
Yeah, I mean, in the world of Tantra or people who believe in chakras or things along that nature.
Those weird swirling spiral
things.
things.
What are those swirling spiral things?
They're like the rainbow.
Yeah, they're so colorful and pretty. And this in the, you know, and so in that world, you know, we would say the second chakra is the sex space, sex chakra, but also in charge of passion and creativity and drive. And I really do feel that for myself. I do feel that when I'm feeling sexually alive, like that is just really potent and juicy. There's a lot of energy coming from that part of me. It's funneling into all these. I am more creative. I am more alive. I am more driven in so many avenues of my life and not just in sexuality. So it's just seems like it is a foundational piece that runs through our core and fuels the rest of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really important element for me, and definitely part of how I present this sexual life force energy. You know, I say sexual life force energy, and the word sexual most of the time will bring people's minds into like the physical intercourse kind of piece. But what I'm meaning by that is quite a bit more grand. It's the relationship of life to itself. You know, it's the ability to perceive and even feel how life is making love to itself all the time. Like everywhere we look, if our eyes are open, we can see the masculine and the feminine. We can see yin and yang doing what it's already been doing for all of time, what it's going to continue to be doing. It's this process of sacred, you know, love making.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the power of creation. It's everything. It's happening in the plants and the animals, and then in the sky and in the air and in the earth and in us.
Yeah, and so this breath orgasm technique, maybe kind of a third kind of key point, is that I also present this as a way to like open that door. I really believe that life is making love to itself. And we're all part of life. So we're actually in this soup of lovemaking all the time. It's not that this isn't available. It's not that it's not around. It's that we're shut off to it. And really all we need to do is get out of our own way and kind of open these gates and these doors. You know, and the chakras can be considered one of many sets of gateways. If we're opening those, we're allowing this energy that's already around to just fill us. That's what it wants to do. As soon as we make space inside of ourselves, it'll fill that space, and we start to open ourselves to the experience of being made love to by life itself. And for me, that has been like the experiences when that has really opened up for me in my own breath orgasm practice. To me, that has been like, okay, well, if I can reach that, then this is something that I need to be doing.
To share with others.
To share with others for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
like
your own practice.
To be able to connect with that.
Yeah.
And that's not always what comes up. Again, it's always individual. Sometimes it really is just relating with myself. And that happens for a lot of people. It's not always the case that this door opens where it's like, oh my God, the universe is filling me, and I see stars and cosmos, and I saw the divine feminine and the masculine, and they were both in me. It doesn't always happen that way.
That can happen though.
But it definitely can, and it's pretty profound when it does. Yeah, I think the people that I've witnessed touch on that usually are different people after they've done that.
Yeah. And the power of breath, there's so many different practices in the world of breath and breath work. And, as people are using breath that it isn't related to sexuality, but it's just for like almost like the same experience people are getting from psychedelics, that the power of breath can do that. I just took a singing actually, it's a voice lesson, not a singing lesson, but it's for singing. It's not so I can talk to you all better on the podcast. I heard I have a really great podcast voice, actually. Yes, thank you. So I took a voice lesson though, and we did this very specific breath where you inhale through the nose and fill up, but you're instead of filling up where we normally breathe, into the chest or even the belly, you're expanding out as if you have gills on your sides, and you're breathing into the lower belly and your sides and your lower back, and like expanding out kind of in this big like air fluffy donut thing. And then you do this slow exhale out the mouth, but with the mouth closed so tight that it's barely any air is coming out, and you do it for as long as you can until you essentially feel like you're going to suffocate and die.
Wow.
And this practice is designed to get us centered down into this place, into our bellies, and expand the lungs so that we can actually sing from this part of ourselves as opposed to the throat. So this is a tangent because I do tangents all the time, but just to give people examples of how powerful breath is. And just, I liked what you were saying earlier about that the breath comes in and it literally fills our cells. So if we're just breathing really shallow in the upper part of our body, which most people are doing, most people are breathing just in the upper part, right?
Yeah, upper portion of the lungs most of the time.
Yeah, because that's just what they've learned to do over time. It felt safer, or we're more heady, or we're more anxious or busy or whatever it is. But when we bring breath in throughout our entire bodies, it literally can move throughout our entire bodies and feed those cells and move energy.
Definitely. Yeah, there's in kind of less of a sexual atmosphere. There's meditation I like to guide people through around that. Very simple, just in your meditative posture, tuning into your breath, just recognizing your breath fills your lungs. Your lungs then send this oxygen to your blood.
And just the blood goes everywhere.
And the blood goes everywhere. Exactly. So just like attention on those two systems, it's like, oh wow, this air is literally going to every little and down to the cellular level is really what amazes me. If we really are paying attention to this oxygen is going to every little tiny cell in our body.
Yeah. So if you want to breathe, you can breathe into your toe. You might not actually get the full breath in your toe, but by getting the breath in your lungs, filling up your body with that deep breath, it goes into your blood and then it can go to your toe.
Exactly. So yeah, it's like the lungs don't reach to your toe, but the oxygen that goes into your lungs does. And then with, again, going back to the breath orgasm practice, really accentuating that, really diving into that, really allowing that realization. Like that's not an esoteric principle. That's just physiology.
Like science, man.
That's science happening. Like this oxygen is going to everywhere in your body. So if you just make the mental shift that oxygen is, maybe you want to make it love, or oxygen is pleasure, then whoa, man, this pleasure is going everywhere.
Yeah, it can go. The possibilities are limitless. And it can go into your genitals. When I work with clients, often I have them breathe into their genitals, and for a lot of them, they're like, but I can't. I don't know how that works. And but you can, and you can add some visualization to it. But we can really breathe anywhere into our bodies. And if you're not a firm believer in that, then read the science on what oxygen does to your blood.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's incredible scientific backing, I think, to the power of breath and even visualization at this point. Really, I think science is catching up now to what a lot of more ancient traditions have known, that like our mind, our intention directs energy, and energy, you might be able to consider energy something like oxygen, our breath and our intention. It really does have an impact on our body and in the world around us. So that's where, like, lately I've been doing a lot of qigong, and it's been really interesting for me. When I first jumped into kind of a more committed qigong practice, I had to ask like my teachers. I was like, what's the difference between this qi stuff and like sexual energy? Because having more experience in sexual energy movement and doing these breath movement practices and visualizations, it really felt the same to me. Like it felt like a pleasurable thing. It was like, whoa, hey teacher, like I'm ready to go into like orgasmic convulsion, but I don't see anyone else doing that. I don't know if that's the point, And pretty much the answer I got was like, well, it's the same thing. It's just, it's intention. It's what am I doing this for? Am I engaging this tool or this technique, for the purpose of expanding what my belief system is around pleasure, how much pleasure I can handle? Or am I doing it to cultivate energy and like build like a storehouse of energy? Or am I doing it to release energetic blockages and things like that? Release pain, release wounding, release armoring. But it's like the same tool ends up working for all these different purposes, depending on, it's like a tool. If you had a hammer that could shapeshift into every other tool that you would need it for, you really only need the one tool. You need a hammer, it turns into a hammer. When you need like a chisel, it becomes a chisel. Our breath, our visualization is kind of like that. This shape-shifting tool that can really serve whatever purpose we choose it to.
Yeah, our bodies, our mind, body, and spirit has everything that we need.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we need water and like some other things, but unless you're a what's your thought on the breatharians? What do you think about those?
That's been pretty fascinating. I can't say that I know too much about breatharianism. I think the most interesting thing I had heard was a breatharian who had like survived for like 42 days or something
with no water, no food.
Breath.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'll be honest, the stories that I've heard have been like pretty not anywhere near as successful as that. Maybe a couple days that people have really worked out, been okay.
Yeah.
But I can say, as far as the like, what I have actually had an experience. There's this like a spiritual school that I was a part of that had a lot of Native American influence. And one of the ceremonies we were doing, this eagle dance ceremony. It's just dancing back and forth to the tree of life. And there's this whole structure created, and where we're all encompassing this tree of life. And part of the alchemy, so to speak, or the protocol for this kind of ceremonies, you don't eat. And you get the option not to drink. You can do a dry fast for this ceremony. And this is the micro version. There's like the Greater Sun Dance, which is a 3-day
I've
festival.
heard of those.
Yeah, those are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But during this eagle dance, I was one of the times I did it, I decided to get courageous, and I did the dry fast, and I hit a very specific moment where I was like thirsty. Like I wanted to drink water bad. And I couldn't drink water. I was dry fasting, but there were clouds in the sky. And what I found myself doing was just throwing my intention up into the cloud like a straw, and actually just imagining myself drinking this cloud. And take it or leave it, believe me or not, but it helped. I got hydrated. I actually felt myself like, wow, I'm like actually like feeling more hydrated. And I got curious, like, okay, now I'll send energy into the ground and try to find water underneath me. And same experience, like send this energy in the ground, find this place that feels moist, at least, even damp, and begin to really focus visualizing pulling this water up and having it nourish me. And it worked. It actually got me through I think the last maybe 6 or 7 hours of this dance.
Wow.
So
maybe
the breatharianism thing is actually like, okay.
There's some truth to it. Yeah.
There might be. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think if you all don't know what we're talking about, there are certain people that claim that they can survive off breath alone. They don't need food or water.
Yeah.
Or they don't need food, but they need water only sometimes. I'm a little confused on what it really means. I'm not an expert in it. But yeah, I like what you're saying about that and the power of visualization. And I'd believe it to a certain degree. I don't know if we could live forever on. I don't know how sustainable. I mean, I don't even think we're sustainable to be vegan forever. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know about breatharians, but yeah, the power of visualization. I've used that for so many moments in my life when I've feel like I needed something that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Or if there was something that I had that I did not want, I have been able to think it away, whether it's pain in my body or having to pee really badly.
Yeah,
Things
that's
like
a good
that.
one. Yeah.
There are tools
My
to work with
empty.
it.
My bladder is empty.
Yeah, my bladder is empty. It has now converted into water and I'm now rehydrated.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what breatharians are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really powerful tools. Do you have a little kind of a mini version of, so you are teaching a workshop at Pure Pleasure on February 21st?
Yep.
Yes. So this is a full breath orgasm workshop. This is open for everyone, couples, singles, whomever, everyone 18 and up can come. It's a 2-hour workshop. I actually spoke to a number of people that came to your last one and they loved it. They were they came to my workshop after. It was my orgasm, regular, not regular, but not non-breath.
Another one. Yeah.
Non-energy orgasm. Yeah. And they were like, oh my God, it was so good. They spoke really highly of it. And I'm going to bring my partner next time.
Yeah.
But if you all want to learn more about that, you can go on to Pure Pleasure's website. And if you're in Santa Cruz, come join us in the workshop on February 21st. Do you have like a little mini version that people could at least just like, not like the full thing, but like people could tap into what you're even talking about?
Yeah.
Of what you would guide them on?
Definitely. I mean, the fundamentals of the technique, you need to have awareness of your PC muscle and know how to contract. Pubococcygeus. Pubococcygeus. Yes.
Yeah, pelvic floor
fancy
muscles.
one. Yeah. So if you don't know what that is, look it up and start to explore, start to feel what that's like. And really, like, the simplest way to start is to practice becoming very mindful of your inhalation, and as you're inhaling, you're contracting the muscle, and as you're exhaling, you relax. And where I started was basically doing that whenever I could think about it at any moment in the day, inhaling, contract, exhaling, relax, and really turning my attention inwards towards my body and what I felt. For like sensation, not feeling like, oh, I feel emotion like sadness or anger, but actual like, what is the sensation feeling?
So like warm, tingly,
right? Do
aroused,
I feel a little tingle there, a little flutter there? I mean, even pain. Acknowledge that I feel pain.
Or
I feel
numbness.
discomfort, numbness. Yeah, I feel the absence of feeling. And that actually, like, let's say like one last piece about like the way I teach breath or orgasm. A large part of it too is redefining orgasm, and a lot of time people come in, breath orgasm, cool. That means I'm gonna like, oh God, oh fuck, I'm coming, and it's like, yes, that's available,
that's there, maybe
that's possible. But one of my teachers explained it in like what I think is the best way. He said, like, we all want to meet those big guys, those big friends, those big girls, whatever you want to call them, those big O's. But what happens is like their little friends show up and they want to get to know us. But we don't really pay attention to the little friends. So the little friends kind of go away and they take their big friends with them. So if we pay attention to their little friends, they'll introduce us to the bigger ones. And so this practice of just simple inhale, squeeze, exhale, relax is a method to start to become very sensitive to those little friends. The way that I like to present it is if you're doing this inhale, contract, exhale, release, and you feel even a little like somewhere, boom, tiny, tiny, tiny little mini O. That's an orgasm. That's a peak. That's a peak from where you were before. Small as it might be, give it power, acknowledge it. Let it be what it really is this subtle increase in sensation. And what I found is that the more that those little steps can feel bigger to us, then the actual bigger things have more. It's like the path is paved for them to show up.
It's the journey.
It's the journey, exactly. And like, if we're creating a pathway towards this like sexual ecstasy and bliss, it's going to be paved with varying size of stones, and each of these stones can be representative of our varying sensations, our flutters, our tingles, and all these kinds of things. But small flutters, small tingles would be part of that, and just starting the process of acknowledging those, not getting stuck in wanting them or needing or forcing them to be bigger. I want that big orgasm. That'll come. Be patient. That'll come.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Let the little ones come first.
Yes, the journey is so hard for people, and I mean myself included. I have plenty of moments where I'm all up in my head, and but there really are so many yummy things in there in the journey. And I like what you're saying also, that they're stepping stones, they're tools. And if we're so focused on the big picture, aka orgasm or explosions or whatever that is, fireworks, whether this is breath orgasm or orgasm involving actual touch, then we miss out on all that stuff. And also then we're in our heads, and then we might not even get the orgasm. It just can totally block us from feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's this moment of let go that's important. I like to say that like there's a portion of any of our ability to tap into our sexual energy. Part of that is self-guided, it is directed. It's us like, and that's the empowerment part for me within sexuality, is like, I am a human being. I deserve pleasure. Like, I am going to activate this. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to open myself. But then there's a point where the pleasure wants to take over. And that's the moment to let go and just fall back into the river and let yourself be taken. And it's important to be able to both go into the activation and to let go.
Yeah, so there's the component of the like commitment to yourself and where you're going and staying present for that, but combined with a balance of surrender. Ooh, so complicated.
Surrender.
Yeah.
What a terror that is.
No.
Surrender.
Surrender into the power of breath orgasm. So terrible. So what is the experiences that people have? I know you said like the mind blowing, I've connected to divinity and divine oneness. And what are some other experiences that people have with breath orgasm?
There's quite a range. There's right off the bat, there's obviously going to be those experiences people have where, they go through it and they kind of come out and they're like, I didn't feel anything. And usually in that instance, what I really try to, this is kind of working like a repatterning or reframing. Like you didn't feel anything. You literally didn't feel what you didn't feel. It didn't exist. There was something part of that you did feel. What was that? However small. This is like, the process of acknowledging the small pieces. And so sometimes in that instance, it might be, okay, well, I feel a little more open in my chest. It can be very, very simple. It can be just very, very small kind of physiological changes. As it escalates, it moves more into like, well, I felt tingling. I felt a warmth. I felt this kind of rushing feeling in, you name the body part or body parts. It can be like I felt a pulse. I felt like a vibration. It can be, and that can, wherever it is in the body, it can be in the genitals. It can really be anywhere in the body. And it progresses, I guess you could say, and as depending on how high up in the chakra system and how open the energy is allowed to become, it can progress into, like in my experiences, I've literally felt my body dissolve into like atoms, and then the room around me dissolve into atoms, and just everything dissolved away into like existence itself. And it sounds like pretty psychedelic. It was incredibly psychedelic. I was like seeing the stars and seeing the cosmos and seeing God, and I could feel this like my experience has been like I have felt like the fullness of like the divine masculine penetrating my whole body and feeling myself filled with the divine masculine, feeling myself filled with the divine feminine, feeling that experience within me, and those two energies like interplaying and making love to each other. And my body basically becomes like the playground for that energy to do whatever it wants.
Damn.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild. Those experiences have been pretty amazing. And again, of course, mixed in there sometimes is going to be, this energy will bring to the surface things. So like a catalyzer energy. It's going to bring attention to where the attention needs to go. And so I've also had experiences where I've gone into younger versions of myself that have experienced some kind of like sexual wounding or some kind of trauma. I've gone into other lifetimes that have been through some version of that, being like really feeling myself in like, ancient Norway, and like
it was cold. It was really
Like,
cold.
this guy stabs me with his sword, and somehow I'm seeing this like, wow, that's like the dark masculine, like piercing and killing, oh, ew, like let me heal that. Or, and it's taken many, many different shapes. So really, I believe that an infinite variety of experience is available. We're playing with like the force that creates and maintains life. So whatever is under the umbrella of all that exists is kind of available to us. And again, it's also really relative to the journey of the individual. The times that I've needed healing, stuff shows up that needs to be healed. There are times that my experience has been pretty minimal, and I've had to be very gentle with myself and just say, okay, right now all I feel is this kind of like light flutter, and that's where I'm at right now. And then I've had these like blown out of my body and like off to Neverland kind of experiences too. Really shows up a lot of different ways. Yeah.
So there's a wide array. Do you think the people that say I didn't feel anything were either so in their heads focused on looking for something in particular, and or just have a history of being really disconnected from their bodies? Like, do you think that there's some things that are coming into play there?
Yeah, definitely. I would say both come into play. And in terms of what people have been able to like consciously acknowledge, I'd say most of the time it's the mind block. I don't think it's as easy for people to share that. Maybe they kind of like, oh, I've been traumatized, so I'm numb in general.
Yeah.
That I've had a few people kind of bring that up who have been, oh, I didn't feel anything because blank, blank, blank. I was traumatized.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I do think that it's really just the limitation of our focus. It's like looking through like a sniper scope. Like, you know, you're looking through the sniper scope because you want that thing, what you think orgasm is. And you're focused in the scope, and the scope is only seeing like a small bit of what's actually around. If you just pull out of the scope and relax to just see, there's a lot more that's really going on that's available to be witnessed. And it's kind of the same thing with the sensation. Like a person, it's in some ways it can be a limitation for people who have experienced any form of orgasm before coming into this, because they have something to look for. They have something that they can go, well, okay, this time I remember once, like I came super hard. That's what orgasm is. And as soon as that thought exists, everything else around it that can also be orgasm becomes much harder to see and much harder to feel. It's like this process that we have to like let go of what we think we know about the subject of orgasm. It doesn't mean like don't acknowledge that, like, yeah, that happened and it felt amazing. I'm totally open to that happening again. But it also has to come with, and I'm open to something I've never experienced. And you can't, if you've never experienced something, you can't look for it. You just find it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there it is. There's that thing. And I had no sense of it until boom, now it's here.
Surprise.
Yeah. And luckily with breath orgasm, the surprise is usually pretty nice.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people who aren't firm believers that you could breathe yourself into orgasm, I like to remind people about sleepgasms, about wet dreams, or just having
definitely.
orgasm in your sleep. That is that's not even the power of the breath. That's the brain just thinking yourself an orgasm. We can breathe ourselves in orgasm. We can think ourselves in orgasm. We can touch ourselves in orgasm.
Yeah.
It's not just what we think it is with just like a finger on the genitals or, you know, whatever. You know, it's beyond the touch. There's so much more there available to you at your fingertips and beyond.
Yeah.
I was like, is that going to be a pun? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. What about, couples? So how do you think this would help people who are partnered? I mean, sorry, I'm choking everyone. One would be
breathe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, breath. Okay. One would be, of course, we could have this as our own solo practice to heighten our arousal and our own connection to ourselves, so that we can show up with a partner, right? That's a big thing, is that self-care, self-practice, so that when we show up to our partners, then all of a sudden we are more alive and turbocharged and connected to our arousal. And then what about, people can do this together too, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely, I think having a foundation in this work as a solo practice helps with the couple work. What I've noticed is that it can be pretty challenging for people just to tune into themselves. It's in some ways it's almost easier with a couple. It's almost easier with a partner, especially because the partner work it doesn't always have to be this way, but it can involve more touch. So it can just be easier to go into like touch related sensation. When you're just by yourself, and especially if you're not touching yourself, you really want to be kind of like gung ho and just do the breath. You really have only that to work with, and however much you can open yourself to. But if you've been doing that for a while and you feel pretty comfortable, like oh yeah, like when I am alone, maybe not alone if I want people to watch, but if I'm by myself and I can do this breath and I really know that I can bring this quite a a sensation forward, it makes doing that work with someone else a little bit easier. And in terms of doing the couple work, like I also do, I've done one workshop now at Pure Pleasure with couples, and another one will be coming probably in April. And it's very, very similar to the breath orgasm practice, but then it becomes more like I'm pulling this energy in, I'm activating this energy into myself. I mean, my partner's doing the same thing, and as we're both kind of stoking these individual fires at different points in the practice, we now intentionally like share the fire. It's like you bring, you have a lighter, you're lighting it, you get your two lighters, you put the two flames together, it's going to make even that much bigger of a flame, that much bigger of an energy. And that's for, to me, that's really kind of like the intimate couple work. this also extends out to what I found really valuable in this practice is it does help us to be more capable of kind of activating the voyeuristic side of our sexual expression, in that I can observe two people in pleasure. And if I am able to kind of activate my own pleasure from there, I can kind of lightly touch them with my energy and allow that to be part of my own energetic breath orgasmic process. So I don't actually have to be in contact with people. I can actually just be around other people in their own sexual bliss or sexual experience and open myself to experience that as my own as well.
It's like a contact high without the contact.
Right, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Just with like being in the same room.
Yeah.
It's like an energy orgy.
Energy orgy. Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on making something like that. It's one of my goals.
Yeah, an energy orgy.
Yeah. My plan with doing this breath orgasm work, both in this solo and the couples, is eventually to have more of a group, kind of a practice space. Hey, you've done this a few times. You want to, be kind of practicing regularly, whether with yourself or with other people. And so show up. It was something when I was going through this process before. I lived in a house where we did this like every week, and it was amazing. People showed up and very friendly, and like really clear boundaries communicated. Clothing was kept on. It wasn't really like raw and sexual in that sense. But everyone felt comfortable breathing and connecting to the breath orgasmic energy to whatever degree works for them.
And then you're making eye contact or with others
sometimes,
or whatever you want. Yeah,
not all the time.
Yeah, it's just open.
Open, exactly. Just willing to connect with that energy.
And this is that kind of thing. I think that would be a great offering, because this is one of those things, like you go to a workshop, you have this profound experience with breath orgasm. I'm going to go home and do this every day. You go home and you do it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, oh, but if only, because it's kind of like for people with yoga practices and working out and things like that too, is we're so much better when we're being held accountable in there, right? We have someone that's leading us, or we have other people that are doing it next to us, and then we push ourselves. Yes. We actually do it. And so, I understand when I teach like a blowjob 101 class, that's not something people want to go to weekly because they're like, I already figured it out. But with this, it is something that I think people would love to go and just be able to breathe together and feel that pleasure together. So I think that's a really great offering. Yeah. And then maybe eventually you get the whole world to do it. Woo!
Yeah, that would be amazing. I actually kind of fantasize sometimes, like, how cool would it be to like have the whole world at the same time, time zones, take a breath together? What would happen?
I think we would create another planet.
I think so too.
Some magical things
be
would
one
happen.
breath, and then the whole like Mother Gaia would just like,
yes. And then there'd be like a little baby Earth hanging.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there it is. We're all moving there. The air is really clean.
Yeah,
no global warming issues. No Donald Trump. Life is good.
Donald Trump. I would love for him to come to my class.
Oh my God, there's so many things that I would love. I would love to for him to come to your classes. I would love to give him some ayahuasca. Yeah, I would love.
That's what I hear from most people. It's like this attitude of like, we really just need to like
give him
enlighten this guy.
Yeah. Well, on a side note, I was listening to another podcast. I don't remember who it was, but I think it was Tangentially Speaking with Chris Ryan. I talk about him all the time. Who wrote Sex at Dawn, and I think he was saying, I think it was him, that he's like, I don't think any one human loves Donald Trump. And that was really, really big for me just to hear that, to feel like a moment of, and I've had moments of compassion because I know that every asshole has deep wounding, of course.
Right.
But to think that, holy shit, and no, he said he doesn't think anyone loves him and that he knows it. And that was really, and so a lot of people, some people like, fuck Trump, man, I just wish someone would like, they wish ill against him. And then you have your people like, he just needs some love. He needs some breath orgasm. He needs some plant medicine. He needs something to snap him out of his
trance him
darkness
out and get the wounded child forward and just
he needs a lot of therapy. But so that's a nice little tangent. But yeah, I mean, more love, more breath, and it's just, these are all just such powerful tools. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's hippie shit, but oh my goodness, we all have it and it's there. And if you don't want to believe it, then you're lost.
Yeah, I like when I run into people with maybe what I might call like a more closed mind around it. It's pretty minimal, not always able, people aren't always able to receive, but bring attention is like, well, you're doing this already. Like, hold your breath for a day. Like, let's see how long you stay alive, right?
Good luck.
Good luck, exactly. Like, you're doing this, you're activating, you're engaging this energy already. It's not something you really need to learn. It just maybe structure, maybe training, maybe refinement to be able to direct it. But like, you're up and kicking because you know how to breathe, and that breath is keeping you alive.
Yeah, you already have the foundation.
You got the foundation, exactly. Yeah,
let's just like add a little. Let's do like the 2.0 version of that. Yeah, exactly. Just build something that you already have.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Wow, I'm excited for your workshop.
Yeah, me too.
So everyone, once again, February 21st at Pure Pleasure. You can go to purepleasureshop.com to learn more. Do you have any other offerings or other ways that people can get a hold of you or find you or hunt you down?
I am working on building my website at the moment, and that'll be rainbowwarriorarts.com. It's actually so that like sexuality work is kind of I would say it's like the spearhead of what I'm most fascinated with. But again, I've exposed myself to a lot of different things, martial arts being one of them, meditation, kind of emotional clearing. And so the Rainbow Warrior Arts platform has been, for me, is developing into a method to do, I call it like human coaching. It's like, how do we really look at like the fundamentals of being a human and like becoming a good human? Like we don't really get a handbook when we come into the world, like, hey, by the way, here's what it's about. Like, this is what the human game is for. And a lot of the, I guess, awareness that I've gained around that has come through sexuality work and sexual healing. So I do feel very passionate. I think that sexuality and sexual work, healing of our sexual sense of self is a fundamental to becoming more evolved, more ascended, more enlightened humans. But obviously there's these other aspects. I'm still very passionate about martial arts. To me, that's really important to teach people about like physical empowerment. And it relates to me again back to sexuality because it's a matter of boundaries. It's a matter of self-protection, which is obviously a huge issue in the world of sexual health and consent. So Rainbow Warrior Arts will eventually be, rainbowwarriorarts.com will eventually be the website to kind of like push that, platform forward where people can have access to more of what I do, including the sexuality work.
Awesome. So those are the best ways people to find you. rainbowwarriorarts.com eventually. Rainbow Warrior Arts
at gmail.com is the email.
Okay, so they can directly get a hold of you.
So they can do the email. That's definitely the way to get a hold of you.
If you have questions, if you want to drag them into your space to teach you breath orgasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm always on the hunt for more places to share. So definitely open if there are venues that anyone.
Yeah. You want to spread it to the world.
I do, I want to get more people breathing and coming.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
I love your message. That makes me so happy. It's perfect for shameless sex.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Awesome. And I will close it down because I don't have April here, so I don't even know how to do that. No, I do know how to do that. She's usually the closer. But let's see. So we mentioned the workshop, February 21st at purepleasureshop.com is where you can find more information. Pure Pleasure is in Santa Cruz, so you do need to be in or near Santa Cruz for Mauricio's workshop on breath orgasm. And as we said in the beginning, if you go on our website, you can buy anything on Amazon using our link. You click on our link, you get anything on Amazon, and that money goes to help us with our wine addiction and our podcast microphone bills. So it does not sponsor us, but if you want to use that, it has no cost to you. It just helps us out. And lastly, I just want to do a shout out to our dear April, who's not here. April, we love you. It's never the same without you, but there was less interrupting. So I say that with love. So that's the end of everything I have to say. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mauricio, and ciao for now. Don't forget to head on over to our website at shamelesssex.com for more. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com.